Are you studying for the Praxis Core Combined Tests? That is test code 5752. If that is a test, or more accurately, a series of tests that you need to pass, then good news. My name is Bob, and I'm with study.com, and I'm going to help you and walk you through everything that you need to know in this video. We're going to cover all the basics of Praxis 5752 and share the most effective preparation strategies to ensure you are fully equipped for the test day. All right, let's jump in. Let's start with the basics. Praxis 5752 is actually a combination of Praxis core tests 5713, 5723, and 5733, and allows you to schedule and take all three tests in the same testing session. This can be an attractive option if you need to pass all Praxis core subject areas, as it allows you to save money on your registration fee and get all three tests over with at once. Registration for the Praxis 5752 costs $150, whereas registering for each Praxis core test individually will cost $90 each, or $270 in total. That is $120 in savings, but please note that you are signing up to take 3 full-length tests back to back to back, so there is an added degree of endurance involved here. And if that sounds like too much to you, don't worry. You can always choose to register for and take each Praxis core test individually instead. But if you do stick with Praxis 5752, let's break down what you can expect. All in, this test runs 4 hours and 35 minutes across 3 separately timed subject-specific tests. The first test, or section, covers reading skills and includes 56 questions over 85 minutes. The second test, or section, covers writing skills and includes 40 questions and 2 essays over 100 minutes. The third test, or section, covers math skills and includes 56 questions over 90 minutes. I want to stop here and acknowledge that is a lot of questions to answer in a relatively short period of time. Generally speaking, the test only gives you 1 to 1.5 minutes per question, and it is important not to linger too long on any single question. We have another video that I will link here that dives specifically into our Praxis time management strategies, but one of the best things that you can do is take a timed full-length practice test so that you can get a sense for how it actually feels to operate under the time constraints of the test. A couple of added details about the questions that you will face. 1, the vast majority of the questions you will see will be standard multiple choice. These will include 4 or 5 possible answer choices, and only one will be correct. There's never a penalty for submitting a wrong answer, and so you're always better off guessing than leaving a question blank. 2, this test does feature 2 essays, and it is important that you prepare for these just as much as you prepare for the multiple choice sections. We have a whole separate series of videos that dives into essays specifically, but for now, just know that you will be given 30 minutes for each essay and expected to craft a 3 to 5 paragraph essay that addresses all aspects of the specific prompt. 3, finally, each subtest may include 1 or 2 extra test questions that will not count to your final score. You won't know which ones they are and should treat every question like it counts, but don't be surprised if your official exam has a couple more questions than the totals listed above. And if you come across a question that feels like nothing you've practiced, don't let it psych you out. Next up, test scoring. Each individual Praxis core test will be scored independently, and you will receive a score between 100 and 200 points for each. You should receive your score report shortly after completing the final section, and will be given 3 separate scores, again, 1 for each test. To figure out if you passed, you will need to compare each score to your state's minimum score requirement. These score requirements differ by both test and state, so it is important that you go to ets.org to get the latest and most reliable information. If you don't meet the passing score for 1 or more specific Praxis core tests, don't worry, this is not the end. There's no limit to how many times you can take the Praxis, and failing a test doesn't define your abilities or future as a teacher. Also, 5752 is not all or nothing. Remember, you receive a separate score for each section, and so it's not uncommon for first-time test takers to pass some sections but not all. If this happens to you, remember that you do not need to retake the Praxis core test that you have already passed. Next thing to think about is where you will be taking the test. Test takers in the US or Canada have 2 main options: testing at home or going into a testing center. We've done a whole video that goes into the pros and cons of each that I will link here. So check that out if you want more information. Testing at home can be really convenient, but it has some drawbacks, so please check our video if you want some help as you make that decision. Also, please don't wait until you're done studying to register for your test. You can generally schedule up to 90 days in advance, and I do recommend taking a look at that sooner rather than later, as testing slots will fill up and you may be left with a time or date that doesn't work as well for your schedule. All right, so we have covered the basics. Let's now go a bit deeper into each of the 3 subject areas that this test will be evaluating you on. First and foremost, the Praxis Core test suite is designed to mimic the requirements of common core state standards in education. Said more simply, these tests evaluate you on knowledge and skills that high school graduates are expected to have mastered in order to succeed in college and their professional careers. This means that the majority of the questions that you face will be at the high school level, though there will also be some questions that focus on more fundamental concepts and only reflect elementary or middle school levels of comprehension. Next, I want to get into the subject areas that each of the 3 sections will cover. Now, there is a lot of information to absorb here, but remember, this test doesn't expect you to get a perfect score or remember everything. So to help you out, I'm going to give you my top 3 skills to master for each section. Again, this won't cover every question that you will face, but if you are comfortable with all of these skills, then you are well on your way to passing the test. Praxis 5713 reading. First up, Section 1, reading. Skill number 1, reading comprehension. You will be given passages and asked to answer questions about them, so you need to be able to understand, interpret, and analyze a variety of texts, including literature, poetry, essays, articles, and instructional materials. Remember that you don't have unlimited time, so you should practice skimming for keywords and ideas. Skill 2, critical thinking. Many questions on the test will ask you to draw inferences or conclusions based on what you've read. You'll need to be able to understand author's purpose and point of view, compare and contrast, and evaluate arguments. Skill number 3, vocabulary and language skills. This includes understanding word meanings in context, identifying tone, understanding figurative language and rhetorical devices, and recognizing relationships between words and concepts. If any of the above feels unfamiliar to you, or you want even more specifics about what is covered on the test, make sure to check out our video specifically for Praxis 5713 that I will link here. Next up, Section 2, writing. Skill number 1, grammar and sentence mechanics. A large portion of this test will focus on your ability to recognize errors within a given sentence. Your job here is to identify and eliminate grammatical errors, as well as remove ambiguity and make the sentence as simple and as clear as possible. It is often helpful to start by simply reading through the entire sentence with an ear to anything that sounds out of place. Skill number 2, argumentative and informative writing. The Praxis Core writing test requires you to write both argumentative and informative/explanatory texts. You need to develop a clear point of view or information, organize your thoughts coherently, and provide supporting evidence for your arguments or explanations. Skill number 3, research skills. You will be asked questions that require you to demonstrate research skills, such as differentiating between primary and secondary sources, analyzing historical data, and using evidence to support arguments. You will also need to understand how to evaluate, use, and cite sources correctly. If any of the above feels unfamiliar to you, or you want even more specifics about what is covered on the test, make sure to check out our video specifically for Praxis 5723 that I will link here. Finally, Section 3, math. Skill number 1, algebra and numeric operations. This is the foundation of most mathematical problems you will encounter on the Praxis Core Math test. This includes understanding the properties of numbers, operations, linear equations, inequalities, and variables. You should be comfortable simplifying algebraic equations. Skill number 2, geometry and measurement. You need to understand geometric shapes and their properties, spatial reasoning, measurements, and the concept of transformations. You should also have a good grasp of volume, area, and perimeter calculations. Skill number 3, data analysis and probability. This involves interpreting categorical and quantitative data along with the basics of probability and statistics. You should be comfortable with concepts such as mean, median, and mode. You should also be able to create and analyze relationships using graphs, tables, and charts. If any of the above feels unfamiliar to you or you want even more specifics about what is covered on the test, make sure to check out our video specifically for Praxis 5733 that I will link here. Now that you have a handle on what the Praxis 5752 is all about, you're probably wondering what to do next. I recommend taking a full-length practice test. That may feel like a daunting way to start, but this way you get an immediate feel for where you might need to put in some extra study hours. And don't stress about your score on the first one, all right? It's just a starting point to help you focus your studies. Once you've got a clear picture of where you stand, it's time to craft a study plan. It'll help you stay on track, and trust me, you'll feel great as you start mastering each concept area. And there you have it. Hopefully you're feeling a bit more confident for your Praxis 5752 exam after watching this video. If you found this helpful, don't be shy. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss out when we drop new teacher test prep content. And if you are looking for more test prep tips, don't stop here. Check out our other videos, and don't forget to check out study.com and our comprehensive Praxis 5752 test prep course. It's jam-packed with all the nitty-gritty details I just skimmed over, including even more videos and a ton of practice questions, all with detailed answers so you can learn from your mistakes. Finally, if you're stuck on specific tests or questions, drop a comment below and let's see if we can tackle them together. And don't forget to circle back once you've passed your test. We'd love to join in your victory dance. Happy studying.